Hello and welcome to my channel. Bonjour et bienvenue sur ma chaîne. My name is Muriel and today I thought I would make one of these little book haul videos because if there's one thing that makes me feel good is acquiring new books. So these are probably the last books I will be buying this year, though perhaps I'll add a couple more. I think I have room in my budget for that. So without further ado, let's get started. But first, credit where credit is due. Some of these books I decided to buy because a fellow booktuber by the name of Rachel, her channel name is Kalanadi and I will link it in the description. Well, she didn't recommend them per se, but she did laud them when she was talking about the books she'd read for the Hugo and Nebula Award Prize winners reading challenge. I think it was a reading challenge. I'm not sure about that though. Her channel focuses on those two genres, science fiction and fantasy, and, well, you should go check her out. So I selected these because they sounded interesting, obviously, because also they're not too thick. I have nothing against thick books, they don't frighten me, but the way I reason it is that I can choose to read several books that aren't too thick, or fewer books that are thicker. Also, they are standalone novels, which is a plus in my book, because as I've mentioned, I don't like to invest myself in big series for now, until these bad boys are over. And finally, because, and I know this is a bit shallow, but so be it, they are published in the Science Fiction Masterworks collection, and I just like that. First we have Babel 17 by Samuel R. Delany. Now this was a prize winner. It was a Nebula Award winner, and the main theme is basically language and communication with an alien species. Always a subject that I find interesting. Then we have a title by another giant of the genre, Arthur C. Clarke, Rendezvous with Rama. It was also a prize winner, but I do not know which one. It's not indicated on the back cover. And so basically the premise is you got this big weird spaceship that pops up out of nowhere in Earth's orbit, or just outside of it I guess, and humans are going to investigate. She described it as hard science fiction and ooh yeah, I felt like I needed some of that. And the next two were not Hugo or Nebula Award winners, but they were featured on Rachel's channel as well, and they sounded right up my alley. So they're both in what I would call the feminist science fiction genre / dystopian. So first we have Ammonite by Nicola Griffith. She did win one of the two prizes, but for a different novel. And this is about a planet, well, where males have disappeared basically. I think a virus kills off any baby born male, and I assume it might involve parthenogenesis or something like that, because there are humans there, but they're all female basically, and they managed to survive somehow, so I'm expecting some sort of mutated reproduction or something like that. And then you have a Terran who basically gets there and discovers how society has evolved with only females, so that's right up my alley. I like to read what's considered classic feminist science fiction and the different scenarios those authors have come up with, so this should be interesting. And finally, this is supposed to be a bit darker, I believe. This is more science fiction and dystopian because they're all alien species, but it's an Earth where women don't have the right to vote anymore. Good stuff. So, Native Tongue by Suzette, Haden, Elgin. And yeah, so like I said, basically women are kept as linguists and translators. So they're sub-citizens, but they are used as linguists. I wonder how that works. And apparently the author is a linguist herself, and she created elements of a female-only language. So that premise is really interesting. Plus, it's got a little blurb here by Ursula K. Le Guin saying it was good, so that's all the endorsement I need. Then, I finally did it. I invested in some good old H.P. Lovecraft because it is high time I get into the horror genre proper. But I'm pretty picky, and I really want to go for the existential horror, or no, cosmic horror, elements of which I found in the Southern Reach trilogy by Jeff Vandermeer. I wanted stuff that was weird and different, and yeah, cosmic horror strikes me as something that could really get to me. Plus, when I'd finished reading The Southern Reach, I was looking for stuff that was similar, and I saw mentioned the short story The Color Out of Space, which is by Lovecraft. And then, you know, I've heard about Lovecraft in videos about A Song of Ice and Fire because there are Lovecraftian elements. Well, you know, even the word Lovecraftian, I want to get to the source of that. So I looked long and hard at what was published and settled for a Penguin Modern Classics edition. The Call of Cthulhu and Other Weird Stories. And I mean, like I said, there were several different options I could choose from. But this one had a good selection of short stories and some I definitely wanted to read, such as The Color Out of Space. So it's got, what, around 15 short stories, so that's good. But it didn't have one I really wanted to read as well. But then I found out that it's published in the Penguin English Library edition. And they have awesome little covers. So I got this as well. Up the Mountains of Madness. And look at this. Isn't this bloody gorgeous? I mean, seriously. Sets the tone also, I think. So actually, most of these I probably won't be reading this year. Most of those will probably be 2020 reads. But this, since it's an itty-bitty short story, I will probably squeeze in before the end of 2019. So excited about that. And then, so basically those I bought before the batch I just showed you, but they are technically to be read. I've got this, The Power by Naomi Alderman. Also, I mean, is it feminist though? I mean, technically, I think it qualifies as feminist dystopia. It's about basically a future where women have acquired a physiological mutation that allows them to basically zap to death anyone they want. I'm not sure how the mechanism works. I believe it's explained in the book, so we'll see about that. And this undoubted physical advantage they've developed means they get to become the dominant sex. And basically the sex-based oppression we have today in the world is reversed, more or less. Sounds very interesting. I'm really curious to see how she tackles that. And I have somewhat high expectations for this. So we'll see. And this will be read this year. I also have a graphic novel. It's called For the Love of God, Mary by Jade Sarson. Now, little story about this. I saw this in a bookstore in French. It's been translated to French. I thought this was a French graphic novel. But then, you know, I saw the name and I was like, that's not a French sounding name. And did a bit of research and found out, no, this is an English language graphic novel. So obviously I was going to buy it in English. This is about basically a young woman in the 60s, 70s, who has a pretty strict religious, Catholic, I believe, upbringing. But the way she interprets the religious message, love thy neighbor, is pretty literal. She basically wants to physically love her neighbors and wants to be sexually liberated, but fitting that within her faith, I think. So this is a lightly erotic graphic novel, but it was in the bookstore in which I saw this, it was under a feminist selection of titles. So I believe that's also a theme of this. So I'm looking forward to reading this. It looks very pretty as well. I mean, the artwork looks quite nice. And then I didn't buy those. I found them in the family library. Or, I mean, I refound them because I kind of knew they were there, but I never really given much thought to those books. Except that now I've decided I will be reading the Dune trilogy. Okay, I know there are more than 3 books actually, but like there's a main trilogy, right? And besides we got the first 3 books, so that's what I'm going to be reading. Dune, yes, another big classic of science fiction. And so these are very old copies because, well, I mean, they must have come from my dad because my mother would never read that. So copies he bought when he was younger, I guess. I mean, look at these. There you go. This was made to go with the movie adaptation. When was the movie made? Or haven't they made more than one movie? I mean, they're remaking one, I know. But I believe they made like a couple of them. I guess this is a 1984 edition. And Dune Messiah and Children of Dune. Look at these old retro science fiction covers. And that's it. That's my little book haul. Like I said, I might splurge and get a couple of, basically the non-fiction graphic novels in a little collection I really like. It's in French. I will definitely talk about those in a future video. And perhaps a non-fiction book. I will see. I also need to get the second volume of the graphic novel adaptation of A Clash of Kings, but that doesn't come out until later anyway. So yeah, that's it for now. Have a lovely day.